This lawsuit not only targets Onision, aka James Jackson, but YouTube itself. What message does Regina Alonso want this lawsuit to send?
Well, first and foremost, she wants accountability for Onision and for Laney Kai, who did a lot of grooming of her through the YouTube platform, through the Onision forums, and ultimately led her as a child to be groomed for sexual exploitation. She also wants to hold YouTube accountable. She wants there to be accountability for social media platforms such as YouTube that have a contract and an agreement. They call it the YouTube Partnership Program, in which Onision, in partnership with YouTube, was profiting. YouTube had a profit-sharing model in which they would give a percentage of proceeds from the advertisements on the platform to the predator. And they were profit-sharing with him after getting ample notification that he was posting dangerous content.
And we're not just talking about Onision, James Jackson here. We're talking about his spouse, Laney, and there are other aliases, who specifically targeted and groomed Regina Alonso.
Absolutely. And I think Laney was a big part of this. And I know Laney has changed genders and has changed names many times. I'm gonna use Laney because at the time Regina was interacting, Laney went by Laney. But at that time, Laney had become the spouse of Onision. Laney began chatting and talking and conversing with Regina. And they actually started having a relationship right about the point when James Jackson put out publicly that he was open to three-way relationships and he wanted his spouse to date another girl. And all of a sudden we have public announcements of Regina dating Laney, and who is an adult, and Regina was a child. And then there's comments about sending nudes back and forth. And then there's comments about, sexual commentary that wants to be done between the two of them. It was highly inappropriate for any child to be in such a conversation.
Was this grooming in its most predatory form?
Absolutely. It was incredibly predatory because it was hidden, it was insidious. It was done in such a way that the child didn't truly understand the nature of what was happening to her. The child, being a person under the age of 18, is somebody who our society, our laws protect children. And instead, they used their influence, their platform, and their control to manipulate and groom this child for sexual contact.
It almost appears that Onision and his spouse, Laney, were working in tandem as a tag team almost to draw young women in to feed their hunger, to have these relationships, to have followers, and to take it to the next level and to prey upon these young women.
Yes, Chris, I would agree. And we've actually alleged exactly that in our lawsuit. We've alleged and laid out a pattern of conduct in which Laney was luring Regina in. And ultimately the ask was to bring her to Washington State for sexual contact in a threesome relationship with both Laney and Onision himself.
Had Regina's mother not stepped in to prevent this, what would have happened?
Regina wanted to go. Regina thought she was in love with Laney, an adult. She thought she was in a relationship which was heading very quickly in a sexual direction. Had Regina's mother not been the mother that she is and stepped in and took those protective measures to keep her daughter safe, she would have flown across the country and stepped into the house of a predator. Other girls, unfortunately, that have also been victims of Onision, we've seen a lot of allegations and they've come forward that they were not so lucky. So Regina was very blessed that her mother stepped in, and unfortunately not everyone was.
How many other Reginas are out there?
I don't know that we know the answer to that. I know you've done a fantastic investigation, Chris. You've really exposed quite a bit of what's been happening behind the scenes, on and off camera. But, we know about the people that you have unearthed. We know about the people that have spoken to our law firm. But, there could be others out there, and I hope that each of them gets justice.
He has exploited this platform to millions and millions of people over several years. Yet it took a documentary that we did to expose the violations of the terms and standards of YouTube to get him demonetized and in some ways deplatformed. How complicit is YouTube here?
Well, we've included that both YouTube and Google, the parent company of YouTube and the one that runs their advertising scheme, as co-defendants in this lawsuit. And as far as what Regina Alonso has alleged, we consider YouTube to be complicit and in equal partnership with Onision in this. Onision was the predator, but every predator could be stopped. Every predator has an opportunity to have the legitimate businesses around them stop them in their tracks and say, you can't use our platform to perpetuate what you're doing. That would have been the responsible thing that big tech could do. But in this case, YouTube did something different. They were warned about Onision. They were told that Onision's targeting children. We've alleged that they had a daily news feed sent to all their employees that updates their employees on exactly what's out there in the media today. They were constantly being told what's going on in media that surrounds YouTube. And yet, they did nothing. Actually, ironically, even we discovered, and we put this in the lawsuit as well, we've alleged that VidCon had come out, and they went out and they were going to have Onision speak. And because of what was coming forward, because of the grooming, because of the way he treated children, VidCon canceled him as a speaker. But YouTube did not.
Why would a multi-billion-dollar company like YouTube, and by extension Google, allow a predator like this to behave this way, to commit what appear to be crimes on their platform?
And Chris, obviously I can't step into the mind of the executives at YouTube. If only I could. But what I can tell you is what we've alleged in our lawsuit is the profit-sharing model that YouTube employs. That profit-sharing model with their YouTube partners, they have a contract signed between the YouTube partners and the YouTuber that is going to be the partner. Once that partnership is contractually formed, there's a profit-sharing model that takes place in which YouTube collects 45% of the ad revenue from the platform, and the YouTuber gets 55% of the ad revenue. Now, what we've also alleged in great detail is that the more salacious, the more egregious that there seems to be with the YouTube videos, there seems to be more viewing and more people come and watch it, more interactions and impressions with that YouTube video. And as a result of that, ad revenues go up the more salacious the video becomes. So in our lawsuit, what we've talked about is not only the profit sharing model and how the money is broken down, but why there might be an incentive for a YouTuber such as Onision, who's putting salacious content out there, to be allowed to continue because tons and tons of people are watching it and money is rolling in.
In the course of my investigation into this matter, I've reached out several times to the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, who has essentially refused to comment on any specifics related to this investigation. I mean, how is that possible? It's so clear not only that he has conducted himself in a predatory way, as has his spouse, but the harassment, the vicious attacks that he has committed using this platform and others are unprecedented.
I couldn't agree more, Chris, and obviously I can't find out what she would or wouldn't say to you, but YouTube is going to have to respond to the lawsuit, and they're going to have to respond. I'm sure we expect that they're going to file, whatever response they think is appropriate, either admitting or denying the various allegations. I welcome to see what they have to say for themselves and hope that we can get to a resolution that's in the best interest of Regina.
You are David taking on Goliath here.
Absolutely. But that's what it takes. That's what it takes when a person such as Regina is going up against something as big as Google. Google is an incredibly huge company, probably one of the biggest in America, if not the globe. But that doesn't give them an excuse to turn a blind eye to trafficking. It doesn't give them an excuse to turn a blind eye to exploitation. And they certainly shouldn't profit from it.
What are you seeking from YouTube/Google?
Regina has several goals. She wants to see a monetary contribution to, from a settlement in this lawsuit or a verdict at the end of a jury trial. That's standard for any civil lawsuit. A civil lawsuit doesn't affect jail. Civil lawsuits only go after money. But let's think about the reason for that. What affects a company? They do things for profit. Companies do things like this for profit. What would get a company's attention? Money. And so by taking money away from a company, you're taking away what they earned through profiting from exploitation and give it back to the survivor of that exploitation that was harmed from it, to help her heal, to help her gain her life back, to help her be able to come back from all the harm that she's been endured because of this.
Do you think this lawsuit could set a precedent to hold YouTube and Google accountable for other predatory content creators it supports on its platform?
I hope so. I truly do. And I hope YouTube takes this as they need to look at their YouTube partnership program. They need to look at what incentivizes people to post things. They need to look at when they're being warned about dangerous YouTubers on their platform, that action must be taken. We as a society can't sit around and say, oh, it's big tech, so they're too big to fail. We saw that happen back in 2008, 2009 with the banks. They were too big to fail, and we had the housing crisis. We now have a different crisis. Our children's safety is at stake. And big tech has to be accountable. They have to step in, and they have to do what's right.
You're a former prosecutor. You've dealt with the criminal side of these matters. You've talked to the victims in predator cases. What has been the impact on Regina and so many other young women who have fallen prey to Onision and Kai? Laney.
Well, I mean, as a former prosecutor, as you mentioned, I've worked with many, many, many children who have been victimized by predators. And there's different levels of predatory behavior. There's different grooming tactics. But at the end of it, there comes down to one key thing. Each of these victims looks back at it and wonders, they self-blame, they become depressed, they have mental health concerns that come up because of the harm that was done to them. Something as simple as grooming somebody actually is a very sophisticated operation. It's done very manipulatively, it's done very intentionally, and it's done for the sole purpose of sexual exploitation of a child. And so the impact on these children is astronomical, it's lifelong, and Regina will continue to heal most likely for the rest of her life.
There are a lot of shocking allegations in this lawsuit, but is there one set of circumstances that shocks even you as a lawyer who deals with these types of cases, as a former prosecutor who's gone after predators and had to deal with victims?
I think the part that shocked me the most has been the backlash that has happened against from Onision, using YouTube, using his other social media platforms that he now posts on. But he has really lashed out against Regina and others that have spoken out against him. And to see a predator lure in children, establish the hierarchy in operation that he did to bring the lure and to bring in the visibility of the children that he wanted to look at. And then to take that, and when it doesn't go according to his plan, to lash back out at those very victims and try to silence them through humiliation, through commentary, and through claiming that truth is in fact his version of reality, that is beyond what you see from a normal predator. That's an incredibly intentional act, and it's done very maliciously to silence those that need to speak up and have their voice heard.
Based upon the evidence, the facts of this case, he's not just a predator, but in a way a terrorist as well, because he so viciously attacks anybody who raises questions about his predatory behavior or that of his spouse.
He certainly does not tolerate, from what he said online and what we've seen, he certainly is not tolerant of anybody with a difference of opinion. That is for sure.
What would represent justice in this case for Regina Alonso?
Regina is looking for two things. She would like YouTube and other platforms to change their policies, to make them more safe for children, and to make our society safer for children online, because online's not going away. So we need to make sure that our kids are protected. And secondly, she's looking for compensation for the harm that was done to her. YouTube allowed her to be harmed. Onision harmed her. Laney harmed her. There needs to be some recompense so that she can be made whole.